is it, between 1 and 50,000? Show of hands. Is it 100,000 to 200,000?
50%.
Is it 400,000? Is it higher than that? Yeah, it is. It's a huge problem. It's actually over 500,000 people can't go to work every week, in any given week. So that's a lot of folks. And that's not talking about the people that are at work and, they're suffering from an anxiety or depression or whatever it is, and they're at work, but they're not productive. So that's a big problem. So the OECD, that's it, reports direct and indirect costs of workplace mental health can exceed 4% of GDP, and in Canada that's approaching $70 billion a year. So we're talking about staggering numbers here. These are not small numbers. It's affecting tons and tons of people. 1 in 5 Canadians experience mental illness, and that's annually. So if we take a look at in our lifetimes, it's at least 1 out of every 3, and probably shrinking to one, every other one of us. It accounts for 70% of short and long-term disability costs, and that's rising as well. So if your clients, have disability plans, which they usually do, have short and long-term disability plans, 70% of the costs are going to be attributed to mental health. And even often in physical disability, there's a secondary mental health issue that involves, someone has perhaps a heart attack or something like that, and then of course because you can't, live your life, you can't go and do things, you can't go to work, you can't go golfing or whatever it is, and so you get depressed, and then the depression starts to take over. So it really affects, mental illness is also, it affects physical illnesses as well. It's hitting Canadian employers at about $20 billion annually. So this is not small change. And this is also, so it's absences, so absence and disability. It's, casual absences, so we don't have to always think of a short-term disability claim. You've got somebody that just needs a few days here and there. It's also, so long-term disability. It's also health claims, so it impacts that. It also impacts the drug spend. So all of these things combined are, it's people are off, so then they have to rehire and train and all that. So all of this combined adds up to about $20 million. That's why it's so important, and that's why we're here. And our message today, which we'll get into more as we go along, our message is about opening up access to care. It's not so much about implementing a workplace mental health solution. I know that was covered off here today. This is about opening up access to care, and we'll talk about that. So the changing landscape. There's a lot of risk that employers are facing. So they've got financial risk and legal risks. And so it keeps evolving as we go along with this. There's the emergence of mental injury as a result of the workplace. That is very important that employers know about this, because there's rising incidents of human rights complaints and litigation, things like that. No longer can you let someone go around harassing someone at work and expect no consequences. It's going to cost employers a lot of money and damage to the reputation and all sorts of things like that. So we have to protect workers in the workplace and make sure that aside from them not being physically injured, that they're now not mentally injured either. So workers' compensation boards have made big changes to their legislation around this topic, around mental illness or mental stress. So it used to be, that if somebody, say, the typical example is someone in a bank who gets held up, and so that would be an acute incident that happened. They're afraid, their lives are in danger potentially. It's very scary for them, and so they have a reaction, depression perhaps, or anxiety, or both, whatever it is. And so that was always something that would be looked at by the workers' compensation boards. So now it's changed. So the boards across Canada are looking, if they haven't changed already, they are looking at making a change to allow chronic mental illness or claims for chronic mental health. So this could be someone, it actually stemmed from a nurse in 2014. She was being harassed by a physician in a hospital for years. And this went on, and she reported it to, she talked to colleagues, she reported it to management, and so on. Nothing was done. So she put in a claim to the WSIB, so the one in Ontario. And, it was declined because it was not an acute injury, it was chronic. It was chronic. It happened over a number of years. So they declined it. Well, she took it up, and so it finally went to the tribunal, and the tribunal overturned it, which is really good because we don't want workplaces to be like this. We want them to be healthy places, not places where people are harassed and get sick. And so, because she did, that's what happened to her. She got sick. So anyway, fast forward a few years, so that was in 2014, other things have happened, more human rights complaints and so on, and so the legislation has now changed. So in Ontario, as of this past January, people can put in a claim for chronic mental stress, and those claims will be adjudicated and if appropriate, approved. And so the reason this is so important for employers to know about is that, first of all, they have to get, and this is, I'm going off a little bit, but, the proper things in place to know how to protect their workers, their employees, and they need to know how to investigate and all the rest of that. But the other thing is the costs. So the cost of a workers' compensation claim compared to a short-term disability claim is much higher. As you can see, they're 4 to 5 times higher. And so it's going to really cost them a lot of money. So by having things in place in the workplace, including more access to care for people so that they can get help when they need it, that'll help impact those fees, those costs to the employers. You see, the way everything is changing, and this kind of behavior is no longer acceptable. So the legislation, and you hear about different bills coming into place and things like that, it's all indicative of a big change in terms of what's acceptable around workplace mental health. Another key thing here is that there's a service provider shortage. So in most of the plans probably that you deal with and provide to your employer clients, if you're on the group side, has paramedical benefit in there so that employees can go see a psychologist. Sometimes it's a psychologist and a psychiatrist, but it's certainly typically a psychiatrist. It doesn't usually have in there also counselors and psychotherapists, which we're representing today. So to go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist in Canada can take up to 18 months. And it depends on where you live. It's not always going to take 18. It might take 3 or 4 or 6 or 8. I know in Ontario there's a psychologist shortage. So it's going to take quite a while to get in, get the referral, then get in to see the psychologist, and then get some treatment. We'll talk about the wait times for the psychologists and for the psychotherapists and counselors in a few minutes. It's a lot lower though, matter of a few weeks. So the other thing around the changing landscape is the lack of government funding. You probably saw in the news recently with the current government in Ontario, in England, that the funding has been cut. So historically, there hasn't been enough funding for access to care, for treatment that people need, and there was going to be more. I mean, there have been some good programs that have been put in place by the federal government over the last little while. There was more money slated for Ontario, and it's just been reduced. So there's not enough funding. So all of these things are impacting how people can get help, how they can get treatment, get better, get back to work, be productive in the workplace, and all of those kinds of things. So I will talk about that a little bit more and try to tie it together for you after Kim is going to talk about the CCPA.
Thanks, Julie. Can I come? Great, thank you. So I'll take a couple of minutes to talk to you about the association, and then I'm going to hand it back to Julie to make the connection between our profession and how we can contribute to addressing some of these issues that she's discussed with you about the landscape of mental health in the workplace in Canada. So CCPA is the largest professional association in Canada for counseling and psychotherapy. We have, we're actually at 6,800 members right now. We have been around for a long time. We were established in 1965, so we celebrated our 50th anniversary a few years ago. We're involved in a number of different initiatives and activities on behalf of our members. For example, advocacy and outreach, so of course that's why we're here today and yesterday to talk about the profession and how we can contribute to some of the workplace issues that you're seeing with your clients. We also do quite a bit around professional learning and professional development events, webinars, conferences, regional workshops, this type of thing. We have a referee journal, newsletter, a number of different activities to help our members stay up to date and current in the field. And we also set national standards for the profession. Oh, sorry, we'll go back. Thanks. So in a minute, I'm going to talk about profession, how the profession is regulated in Canada. You'll see quickly, if you look at that bullet, it's only regulated in 4 provinces. So in the absence of regulation across the country, CCPA has a national certification program, and we've had that in place for over 30 years. It's called the Canadian Certified Counselor, or CCC designation. So the CCC designation is our way of saying to the public, if you're living in provinces that are not regulated, you can trust this particular designation if you're trying to access counseling and psychotherapy services. So we're saying this is the minimum standard that we've identified to practice in the field. We, as part of this designation, we require a minimum of a master's degree in counseling or related fields. We also require an extensive supervised practicum, criminal record check, vulnerable sector check, as well as a continuing education credit requirement, like you folks here, you're here gathering your continuing education credits. We have that requirement. We have a code of ethics, we have standards of practice, and we have an ethics complaints procedure. So if a member of the public feels that they're being mistreated in any way, they can go through that formal process. So we do have oversight over the profession in non-regulated provinces. So the profession is regulated in 4 provinces, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, and Quebec. And it is soon to be regulated in a few others. So all provinces in Canada are working towards regulation of the profession. And as an association, we actively support that. We have a legislative support fund to help provinces that are working towards this. We provide administrative support because we all feel that it's for the greater good to have the profession regulated in all provinces for the protection of the public. I will say that Alberta is very close, for any of you who are living or working in Alberta. Alberta is close to being regulated, as well as Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland and Labrador. So we're hoping within the next year or 2, we'll see those provinces come on board. So we are a bilingual association. We provide all of our services in English and French. We have regional directors in every province and territory. New Brunswick, Quebec, and Ontario, we actually have 2, an Anglophone director and a Francophone director. So it's very important to us that we're providing services in both languages. We also have a National Indigenous Director on our board to ensure that there's an Indigenous voice and perspective taken into account when we're making policy and program decisions. Our members could work in private practice. Many of them do. That's probably our largest special interest chapter. And some of them work as part of multidisciplinary teams. And of course, the benefit of working in a collaborative team approach is that there's greater access to care, quicker access to care, and you receive the appropriate care that you require. Some of our members work through e-mental health or virtual care services, and Julie's going to talk a little bit about that in terms of how that increases access to care. And we're a very cost-effective service. So typically, counselors and psychotherapists charge between $70 to $150 per hour. Of course, that depends on where you live, the clientele you're working with, the demand, supply-demand issues, but this is what we see as the typical range. We have a directory on our website where you can search for a Canadian Certified Counselor in your region with various areas of specialization depending on your needs. And we also have a public-facing website called talkingcanhelp.ca. So this is for members of the public to check out to learn more about counseling and psychotherapy. How do I find a counselor or psychotherapist? How do I determine if counseling and psychotherapy is what I need? And that's available also in English and French. So that's a bit about our association. I'm going to hand it back to Julie to make a link for you.